Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Phone Wallet Keys, David Ortiz. This is season 2, episode 2. I'm here with my brother Max. My name is Sam. Max, you're on the line?
Yeah, I'm on the line. We have seasons now. The reason we didn't have any episodes for a while was because we were taking an unannounced season break.
That's right, yeah.
Also, we would also like to welcome people who don't identify as either a gentleman or a lady to our podcast. I would just like to add to my idiot brother's stupid introduction. Also, I was rebuked on the internet for calling you an idiot the other day.
Really? The internet loves me. They really come to my defense.
No, I was being rebuked over ableist language, not like the idiot in the sense of like the character in Of Mice and Men.
Lenny?
Yeah. Was described
So
as
the
an
internet
idiot.
wasn't coming to my defense? They were coming to Lenny's defense?
Let's change the subject.
Cross me up. Don't snap. Don't breathe. Just to leave me up this skin. And baby begin.
Brother, it's good
Hey,
to
Sam.
see you in the light. How are you?
Good. FaceTime's working really well. I can see you crystal clearly.
Yeah, same. Unlike Game of Thrones last night. Did you watch that?
You
Is
didn't.
my computer hopelessly fucked up? Like, I couldn't see a single thing that happened in that entire fucking thing.
Look, I'm sorry for you, but the Washington Post critic, according to our father, said that it was the hardest thing to it was indecipherable what was happening. He thought there was something wrong with his TV set.
Did you talk to our father about his viewing experience? What did he say?
He
Was he
loved
having
it.
trouble? He could see it.
No, no one could see anything. He thought the dragon shit was really confusing.
I just don't understand. Like, I tried to look at a recap or two, and
Look, I don't want to do this.
all right, fine. I did not have any trouble watching Game 1 of the Celtics Bucks series.
Have you been watching the Bruins playoff games too?
I watched Game 1. I watched Game 7 and Game 1. I missed the double overtime loss, Game 2.
But you did watch
you see
Game
it?
7?
Yeah.
So that was, yeah, I watched Game 7, 1 and 2.
Okay, great. You want to start with the Bruins instead of the Celtics?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are there's like
Let me interrupt you.
okay.
Playoff hockey is fucking crazy. It gives me a panic attack to watch it. It's so insane. There's nothing that's like that.
It's so crazy. It's like the bottom of the ninth and the tie score every second.
It's so insane. It's way crazier than basketball and football and everything else. It's
Because
so
of
insane.
how quickly the scoring plays develop. Is that what you're saying?
It's amazing to me how short the rink looks. They can just traverse one side of the rink to the other in the blink of an eye. And so, yeah, it's just like one prolonged scoring opportunity the entire game. And basketball is also kind of like that. But because the games are so high scoring, it doesn't really matter. Like, each basket doesn't really matter for the vast majority of the game. If you give up a basket, you can kind of just get one back on the other end. But hockey's got that thing that soccer has where the goals are incredibly important. And each score is a potentially game-deciding score. But unlike soccer, you can score. It can take a second to score. Like, one team can have the puck down and get a good shot on goal and almost score themselves, but it could hit off the post, and then in the blink of an eye, it can just be on the other side of the rink and the other team scoring. It's just like so action packed, but the stakes are so high for each score, and the whole game is a potential scoring opportunity. It's insane. And then you add on top of that the physicality, the these guys are going so fast and they're ruthless, they're brutal, and yet at the same time they're very dexterous, they're balletic. It combines all these different elements that are so into just this thing that is a fucking heart attack to watch. And the like late period stuff is just, it's too much. It's so insane. What was that double overtime? Can we work backwards?
Yeah.
What was that double overtime game like?
I mean, it was stressful.
You don't do well with this kind of thing. Like, how are you even watching this?
I would say that like during double overtime, instead of using my blue blanket, I wrap myself in 3 Bruins jackets that I have. So
Wait,
I would
like
not say
your
I'm
blue
doing
blanket, meaning the little like blue blanket that you were
no the
basically
blanket
wrapped in
you,
as an infant.
No, what? Please don't
you have,
say,
like,
don't say that on the podcast, Sam. What?
Did you have like
Stop.
a security blanket that you called blue or bluey or something?
Yo,
Little blue.
fuck that. I'm talking about the blanket that I so like graciously let you use when you came to visit me and I slept on the couch. That blue blanket. I didn't want karma to get confused about me draping myself in something blue. So instead of doing that, I wrapped myself in 3 jackets and watched the game in bed. So I would say that I'm not doing particularly well with it. I would say things are going pretty poorly in like the managing my mental health during playoff games if I am foregoing blankets based on the color and based on my own like past as an infant's history notwithstanding.
Also, what about like, do you think that being put on amphetamines at a young age is like prepared your heart for the damage that playoff hockey is doing to it better or worse than if they had never been on amphetamines? Is that a bad question? Should I strike that from the record?
I would appreciate if you would not bring up like mom and dad's erroneous desire to put me on Ritalin as a child, my childhood blanket situations, all of that.
Wait, but actually, do you actually want me to strike that from the record?
I just think you could say something like nicer in the future, like, but Max, you're not like really cut out for this type of like ongoing constant stress.
Yeah.
Or something.
You're really not. I can't imagine.
I just think we're going to win these games. I feel like we can beat the Blue Jackets. I feel like...
So how did we lose that game, though?
Well, we hit the post, and Patrice Bergeron didn't score twice, and then he took a penalty, a really stupid penalty, and then they scored on the power play immediately afterward. Like, he's our best penalty-killing forward, so, like, him taking a penalty and him not being able to participate in the penalty kill is, like, kind of like a double whammy. But... I have this, like, so the Bruins have the best record left of any remaining playoff team.
Uh-huh.
Every division winner, including the incredible Tampa Bay Lightning, lost in the first round.
That's so insane.
It's so
Every
insane.
single division winner lost.
It's never happened.
Except the Bruins.
Like this, imagine this happening in the NBA, where like
the
not
4, 5, and 6, like the 4, 5, 6, 7 seed. What 4 or 5?
No, 5, 6, 7,
7,
8.
8. Sorry, yeah.
Win in both rounds.
It's insane.
That would be so crazy.
And so, what do you take from that? That just playoff hockey is like almost.
It's so anachronistic in a way, right? Because it's hostile to sort of like the game of hockey is sort of hostile to all the modern developments. There's no real like stoppages in play, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the way they deal with it is they just like sub the people out for like every 45 to like 75 seconds.
It's insane how frequently they do the subs and subbing on the fly. Like it's disorienting at first, like because again, like I didn't watch regular season hockey, and so there's always an adjustment period. But it's crazy that all of a sudden you just see the players just booking it for the side. You're like, what's going on at first? But they're just
right. Imagine if
subbing
Kyrie
in and
Irving
out.
was coming in and out after like every play.
Right.
and then would come back in 2 plays later.
Yeah. It's totally insane. But fun.
It's fun. But so the thing about the Bruins is like are neither David Krejci, Brad Marchand, or Patrice Bergeron or David Pastrnak are playing very well right now.
Right. It's been our third and fourth line, guys. Like that's who got the job done in that game 7.
Right, and that's not a good model. Like the Bruins have home field advantage for the rest of the playoffs into the Stanley Cup Finals if we
just
win.
Lost it in this round, right?
Well, I mean, like Game 7 will be played in Boston if necessary for as long as we're in the playoffs. But we're not going to stick around if our best players don't start playing well. Like if our best players play well and our third and fourth line play the way they do, we'll win the Stanley Cup, and that's incredible. It's so cool. Did you want to? I saw that on Twitter you shared an article in the Wall Street Journal, which you read. Apparently,
No, I don't. How dare you?
No, but I didn't. Like, go ahead. Why don't you tell everyone what this article said?
Oh, it was well. You want me to tell it? I mean, it's your vindication. It's basically like the national.
Well, why do you think I didn't want to? Yeah, thank you for right. It is my vindication. So please set it up for me.
Yeah. Well, you've been for the entire since season 1, episode 1 of this podcast, or at least like episode 3, I think. You've been putting forth this theory that there's going to be. They now have a term for it. They're calling it. What are they calling it? The Boston
Slam.
The Boston Slam, right. We've been just saying sweeping the titles. Boston's going to sweep the titles, and the rest of the country is going to be so mad that it will have some kind of profound and paradigm-shifting effects on
the internal dynamics
culture of the United States. And which is a ridiculous, absurd. I mean, I think it was like kind of a joke. It's one of this thing happens to you all the time. You like say this, you say like a joke, or you just like kind of, you know what you do. You just kind of talk incessantly without thinking. And then sometimes people laugh, and then you're like, oh, that was funny. And then you kind of like double down, and then you like take it, you know, to like a really intense degree. And then all of a sudden you are like protesting outside of the Museum of Fine Arts and getting into like print wars with Pulitzer Prize winning art critics, like, or in this case, you've like said this thing and I think I laughed, haha, and then you're like really like made it the central thesis of our podcast, and now all of a sudden the Wall Street Journal editorial board is
equally concerned with the upheaval that would result. I mean, once the Bruins had a Game 7 last week against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who we should talk about as a fan base because they're like deeply, deeply deranged, and it's funny. But
the Toronto fan base,
yeah. So as long as we're handing out like crushing blows in the playoffs, it would be funny to me if we beat the Maple Leafs in a Game 7, and then the Celtics played the Raptors, and we gave them like that would be a devastating double blow that I don't think the city would recover from.
So you want to bring Toronto into this battle too? This isn't just about the United States, huh?
Idle no more. No, listen, brother, it's important that you understand that like capitalism is doing a fine job on its own of disrupting itself and changing the internal dynamics. But people's hatred of Boston could really, I mean, there's like a lot of arguments about accelerationism, right?
Explain.
Great. Thank you for asking. I'm happy to. So, for instance, right, I guess the most classic example of like wrong-headed accelerationist thought, right?
Stalin.
No, I would say people who are like, we need Donald Trump to beat Hillary Clinton because Hillary Clinton, people will just like go to brunch, as they say, and like Donald Trump is going to get people like into the streets, and that's what we need. But like,
turns out we just still want brunch.
And also it turns Also, it turns out, I think the more to the point though, is that the people who are saying this aren't the ones who are like at the pointy end of the stick.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So if the material conditions are impacted so severely to like poor people, to black people, to immigrants, like it's actually not worth it for them, and it's dumb for other people to say so.
Right.
But see, that argument against accelerationism completely falls apart when you talk about the Boston Slam, because that it would just be so great. Like the material conditions of Boston would be definitely improved, but I reject the idea that it would hurt other people, but it would make them very angry and start to question the role capitalism plays in the games that they love.
Isn't there a thing where Lenin went and talked to Engels, because I think Marx was already dead, and said, look, according to your whole theories here, you have feudalism, which is then replaced by like industrial capitalism, and then that leads to the internal dynamics where communism like takes place. But Lenin was like, we're just ready to go in Russia from feudalism straight to communism. Do we really need to go through this whole industrial part? And Engels was like, yes. And Lenin said, fuck you, we're just going to have the revolution anyway. And then they succeeded in the revolution, but then like communism kind of failed. And then it was then like Stalin had to industrialize and abandon communism. And it kind of just ruined the whole fucking thing. Cause now everyone is like communism equals Soviet Union and like the horrors of Stalinism, which I know you're fucking chomping at the bit to defend Stalin, which you always want to do these days. Your fucking heroes, Stalin and Mao and all your other fucking psycho crazy people that are probably just like you. But I'm a little bit concerned about the accelerationism in this, in general, but in this context,
it's fine.
I guess I'm willing to go along with it. Yeah, accelerate.
It's fine.
You like the duck boats. This is called like duck boat accelerationism.
Look, you said a lot of insane things just now. You said a lot of crazy things, and someone should hold you to account.
I didn't hear you denying really any of my accusations. So
I deny all of your accusations on principle, and will address them specifically as needed.
Okay, so what is it about? Is it just that the Bruins' three best players have gone cold, or is there something that defenses are doing? Like, I don't really like in basketball. I kind of have a sense of the adjustments that other teams make that will then like I know why Giannis had a bad game. I don't is there something that other teams are doing that are taking like Patrice Bergeron or David Pastrnak off their normal games? Are they just cold and they're about to heat up? Like what's going on?
Are they hurt? My take is that they might be hurt, according to some of the websites, and there's been whispers that they're injured, but they won't say because they're hockey players. Also, I think it's just like the nature of playoff hockey that like if you put like the best defensive pairing and the best like offensive players like against each other, then they don't get as many opportunities. So if Chara is always out against the other team's number one offense, the number one offense isn't going to do as well. But when Chara's off the ice, there's an opportunity there.
Right, which is why the third and fourth lines are having more success because they're going up against the weaker defenders. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
That's interesting. Hockey is so fucking brutal. How could these guys not be so devastatingly injured, like ravished? Hockey really feels, we often make this comparison of watching football to being like the Roman Colosseum, but it's hockey that's like that. I imagine what the Colosseum was like, where people are really just like people are going so fast and so vicious and violently smashing into each other, and then the fans are pounding on the glass and screaming, and like the fans are so bloodthirsty at a hockey game, way more than in a football, it seems like. And who was like bleeding from the face in the Bruins game on game 2?
Someone got a stick to the face and was pissed off about it.
Yeah. Have there been any good fights yet in the playoffs, the Bruins playoffs?
No, they don't usually like to fight during the playoffs because that's a huge penalty, 5 minutes.
Right.
But
right.
The Bruins power play last few games has been really bad, and in Toronto, it was unbelievably good.
There was also like a little small fight where the guy in the Toronto series, that fucking evil guy cross-checked someone in the face, and then it's like Chara kind of got him in a headlock and was punching him like that a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, he got suspended for the rest of the series. That was a big moment for that series.
Yeah. So you're still feeling confident. The Bruins, it's 1-1 now, and now it goes to fucking Columbus.
Columbus,
Is that
Ohio,
right? They're from
yeah.
Columbus, Ohio. I think I went there
On tour?
on tour. Yeah. There's a sex shop there. And I think Joey got this book called like Woof: Perspectives into the Erotic Care and Training of the Human Dog, or something like that. And let's see what else. It's a college town. So there's a heavy metal record store. That's all I can say. It sucks there.
Yeah, I mean, also, it's like, that was what, like, remember that Calvin Hobbes cartoon where, like, they're riding on the escalator and, like, the dad is talking about how the escalators have changed since he was a boy? And then Calvin
says, well, I wonder if one day all my life events will turn into meaningless nostalgic rants or something, right? What does he say?
Stories that have no point is what Calvin says, which I think is a little bit more on the nose for whatever the fuck diatribe you just went on.
I'm fleshing out the scene of Game 3 for the Bruins, where it's going back to Columbus, and I've happened to, as my duty as a reporter for the Phone Wallet Keys, David Ortiz publication, I scoped out the city a little bit, and I don't think that they really have what it takes to push their home field advantage. So I'm looking for the Bruins to take one of these games back.
Are you sure, though, that since they have literally nothing going on at all, that maybe they really love their hockey team, as happens from time to time?
Yeah, I mean, but I think Boston is not resting on the laurels of our championship past. And by past, I mean like from the last 6 months, the 2 championships that we've won. I think
it is funny how
actually,
everyone in the city is just grilling the Celtics and the Bruins, just being like, all right.
We want this bad. This is not a take it or leave it situation right now. People kind of realize that this thing is in play now. And again,
and it would be so great.
Yeah. So,
oh my God, Sam, do you know how insufferable we could be if we had all 4 fucking title belts on our fucking arms at once? We would be insufferable. Imagine walking anywhere, like, oh, a hockey bar? We could just talk about the Bruins. It's like, oh, you're one of like we could actually, like, it would be, Canada, everyone in North America would want a piece.
It's, I can't really remember that well, but I do have these memories of pre-2000, like what life was like in the 90s. And didn't like everyone already hate Boston in the 90s, like before we turned around and won 14 championships or whatever? I think we're up to 12, actually, soon to be 14.
I don't think so. Like,
already
back then, so if in the 90s there wasn't like some like weird tax incentive to make movies in Boston, so there wasn't like an oversaturation of Boston in like the only movie I remember being filmed in Boston was like the opening scene of The River Wild, which is
Wait, there's Good Will Hunting. What are you talking about?
Right, but
also probably Mystic River.
Brother, this is post-tax credit situation. Okay.
No idea what you're talking about.
When did Good Will Hunting, first of all, wow. And second of all, when did Good Will Hunting win the Oscar?
Before we went on this title run.
Before 2001?
Yeah.
When we were kids?
Yeah. I think. I mean, I could be wrong.
But everyone loved that movie, and it was like won the Oscar. People were like people were like, oh, Boston's nice. And then there was like Karate Kid 4 with the girl, filmed at Brookline High.
Oh, that was cool.
But
I remember that.
for the most part, like it wasn't like every other movie coming out was about Boston. It wasn't. We weren't winning championships. People like hated the Yankees a lot, and like
So you're saying that the hatred of Boston is actually tied into our
to Tom Brady.
12. Right. Fair enough. Well, then let's just keep going. We got to just keep driving that knife in. And
Do you think that this is like all of the success is actually tied to Tom Brady? Like Tom Brady shows up in Boston and like it through osmosis, the winning culture that he brings and the expectation of it, like forces not just the Red Sox but all the teams to get their acts together?
It's possible, but I would submit this to you. You know, I just finished reading Moby Dick, and one of the questions that I kind of was asking myself is, who can I relate Ahab? Who is a modern day version of Ahab? Someone who's pathological and an insane person, and so driven with blinders to the point of pure insanity to achieve his goal. And it's not Brady that.
But the difference between me and Ahab. Oh, what? What were you saying?
Yeah, right, brother. Yeah, right. You're like maybe Pip.
Talk not of wait. I like the part where Ahab goes, "Talk not of blasphemy" to Pip. He goes, "Talk not of blasphemy to me, boy. I'd strike the sun if it insulted me."
I don't think that's the Pip, but that is a classic line.
It's really cool because, like, as someone who gets a lot of sunburns, it would be nice to be able to smack the sun back in its face.
Sure. So Belichick seems like the monomaniacal, like he seems like the model of this monomaniacal pursuit of a nightmare / dream.
But he runs so cold. He's not emotional, right? Like he just like cuts players loose and like, I mean, they have the same ruthlessness, but like Belichick is steady.
Blood is literally boiling.
Yeah.
And Belichick's very steady. It's true. But I was gonna say that Brady, in the analogy that it's not, Brady's also not hot enough to be full Ahab. He does get
he's
fired
close.
up.
He's pretty close.
And maybe it is Brady all along. I was thinking Brady was more like Starbuck, kind of like like the first mate who's sort of just caught along for the ride and is a little bit like, this is a little bit fucked up, but I guess like we're going for this. Like I still like have love. Like Brady still remembers life before this Patriots dynasty, and you get the feeling that Belichick is just he lost sense of the land, so to speak. He doesn't care about it. And I love the Stubbs, who's the second mate and just thinks life is a joke and is constantly like joking in the face of all these horrors, is a great Gronk analogy, I think.
Brother, I actually think that Tom Brady as Ahab is very interesting, and the sort of monomaniacal way with which Brady pursues only football. Like all he wants to do is watch tape and like eat food and plan out his entire like year around football.
That is very Ahabian, like to like just go and. But the thing that I can't get over is like the fucking Ahab would never like be in UGG boots and Rolex watches and like. Ahab is married with a kid, but he like kind of doesn't even know, like he like married late and he doesn't care about anything else. Like Brady's like, isn't he like kind of like a family man a little bit? We don't really know, I guess. I want to talk about briefly the Patriots draft, but can we first talk about the Celtics, please?
I don't want to talk about the Patriots draft. I just want to go straight into the Celtics and then talk about maybe how the Red Sox are the worst team in the league.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter because when does this all end? Like, when are the NBA and NHL finals? They're in June?
Yeah.
Like, we're not making it through the summer without some profound radical changes.
No, I mean, like, maybe the Red Sox are just, like, so into the Boston Slam that they're not using any karma points and just, like taking all of the losses so that...
That's a really good point, brother. That's a really, really good point.
Which I appreciate. I admire that. actually.
I do too. Yeah, that's actually
That's real civically minded of them.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like, it would be like building a monument to the sky, you know? If we win all 4 championships, it's like building the fucking pyramids it's like for the city of Boston. That's something we could have forever, and it would be so great.
Yeah. Wow.
So the Celtics haven't lost a playoff game this year.
They really
5-0.
have not. They haven't lost 5-0, and which includes 3 road games, which is significant considering last year we only won 1. Not only that, brother. Today's Monday afternoon now. So yesterday, Sunday, I watched Game 1 of the Celtics Bucks series, and then I watched Game 1 of the Golden State Houston series. And maybe I'm looking ahead a little bit here, but that's the Warriors versus the Rockets is the series that everyone says basically is probably going to decide the finals, whoever wins that series. And I watched both those games and was like, wait a second.
The Celtics who showed up to work yesterday would have beaten both the teams that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, the Celtics might be the best team left. It's a 1-game sample size, and unfortunately, I think we're 11 wins away from the title. So, which is not that much. I mean, but we clearly can do it. We can clearly win this title, which I didn't
That's
really
what yesterday
believe
made me
until
feel like.
yesterday.
It made me feel like, oh shit. Yesterday I was like, oh shit. Not only could the Bruins win this, because like pathway for the Bruins is clear, right? They have
as soon as we
11
won Game
more
7,
victories.
Right. Game 7, once we cleared Game 7 of that weird first round where all the other teams were losing, all the best teams were losing, it was like, yes, we could do this. The Celtics, it's like, yeah, we swept the Pacers, but we still have to get through the Bucks and then probably the Raptors or maybe the 76ers.
We don't have home field. We can't have home court.
We're facing a lot of we're going to face whatever the 3 next teams that we're facing, including the Bucks now that we're facing, are going to be 3 of the 5 or 6 best teams in the NBA.
And they're going to be with us as the
underdog.
I mean, underdog. They're not going to have. We're not going to have home court advantage.
We're not going to be favored in any series left, but unless we just blow out the Bucks, which all of a sudden is in play, I mean that it's insane what happened.
Paul Pierce after the game was like, "It's over. The series is over. The Celtics are winning," which seemed really a little hubristic, but not like it. Just is like what any good Celtic would say.
Yeah. So here's we're going to get into this now. If you don't really actually care about sports, skip ahead because I want to talk about pick and roll defense and.
No, everyone, listen, I don't really want to talk about the things that Sam wants to talk about, so don't skip ahead. It's going to be fine. I'm going to push back on everything. A lot of fraternal banter coming up. Anytime he tries to like fucking nerd out, I'm going to grab him by his collar and like some old-fashioned older brother shit is like in the pipes. So stick around. We'll see what he's got.
You're sick. All right. Basically, we know that they have Giannis, who's probably the best player in the NBA, or at least like kind of the most athletically gifted and sort of
the Greek freak they call him.
Yeah, he's fucking amazing and he's really funny but we have this amazing plan to stop him, and we faced them in the playoffs last year. It's the same plan basically, and it's not like some military genius plan. It's just like build a wall of players in front of him to keep him out of the paint, and like you'll just notice in this series more than you've ever seen all season, all the other defenders, not the ones on Giannis, but like Tatum, Brown, like when Horford's guarding Giannis, everyone else has their arms like wide out wingspans stretched from left side to right, like just to kind of minimize the amount of space in front of him. So they're going to give Giannis an outside shot, and he hit 3 3-pointers last night, but it kind of like that's fine. It's actually good for us if Giannis thinks that he can just like be an outside threat. But on the other side of the court, number one, the Bucks had this tendency all season long to play the pick and roll.
Wait. Before we go any further, I just want to let everyone know that my brother's talking about this guy known as the Greek Freak, who is the NBA's best story. Look, there are I just want Toby, Sophie, if you're out there listening, what my brother's talking about is this feel-good story that is only possible in the NBA, where this guy who is like a Nigerian refugee in Greece ends up getting drafted into the NBA, but no is like really raw. No one really knows what's up, but he like gets drafted late. But like in the first few years, he doesn't really do anything. But now year 6 of his career, he's the unequivocal best player. He's better than LeBron. It's crazy. He's so graceful and athletic and powerful. It's profound what he's able to do with his body. And that's who the Celtics are going up against, like the best player in the NBA, and it's not fair.
Yeah, he can do things with his body that it's true that LeBron couldn't even do. Like he's first of all, he's 6'11" or he's 7 feet tall, but he's by far the fastest player on the court too. And his stride, like his strides when he's running are so long that no one has ever seen anything like it before. And so they don't no one understands about when it's traveling or not, because it kind of looks like he's always traveling. Like the traveling rules about like you have to dribble for every step you take roughly. Like it just like looks weird because he doesn't really have to dribble because his legs are so long and his stride.
He can get from the 3-point line to the basket in 1.5 steps, which is like, we're talking 30 feet. And that is, so it's really hard to guard against. And
but the Celtics do have this, we have one guy that can actually match up pretty well with him, Al Horford, who's also big, but like has a lot of experience. Very strong, but he can, he's quick too. Like he can play on the perimeter. He's not just like a guy that's stuck in the paint. But I have to say, even the few possessions when Baines was on Giannis, I loved it. Baines is bigger than Giannis and would not let him back down. It was like, they're clearly going to throw some big guys at Giannis to just try and get physical with him and eat up some fouls, because Giannis is so good at drawing fouls, but they're going to make those fouls count by making like Baines and Ojale like really hit him hard or something. But for the most part, it's just Horford was phenomenal. And on the other side of the court, the Bucks had this tendency to drop down on pick and roll defense. So when whoever's guarding Al Horford, it's Robin Lopez, the Bucks center on the other side of the court. Horford sets a pick for Kyrie, and Lopez drops way back, and so Horford is able to shoot from the top of the key. And even though he's not as good of a shooter as he was in years past, he's still good enough to really make them pay for that. And they had no answer for that. And you couple that with basically like Kyrie in the first quarter of that game he had 3 or 4 possessions in a row where he was posting up George Hill, I think it was, and then was like sailing these beautiful moonshot like post moves, swishing the ball. It was so beautiful and incredible. And then he stopped. He said after the game something like, "Look, I don't even care that much about shots anymore. I think everyone in this building knows I can get my shot whenever I want to, and now I'm kind of more interested in and it's of getting the rest of the team involved," which is a hubristic thing to say on the one hand, but you couldn't have watched that first quarter and come to any other conclusion. I love that Kyrie just does that. He's going to start the game off by saying, "Just so you know, I'm the second best player on this court, and the gap between me and Giannis is closer than the gap between me and the third best player, or the fourth best player." Like Kyrie is a transcendent talent, and he proved that. But he's also, the thing that was so amazing and hopeful about this game 1 victory is that we don't need Kyrie to score 40 points to win. And I think the Bucks are going to need Giannis to score 40 points to win. And I mean, he had 25 in game 1. So we have a good defensive plan for him. And then on the other side, we have Hayward had a great game. Jaylen Brown played really well. Tatum was quiet, and that's good. It's good that we dominated this win and we didn't need Tatum at all, because Brown's not going to be able to have that same game every game in the series, but Tatum will pick up the slack when we have enough weapons so that we can have guys having off nights and still, I mean, we're going to play this series really tough, and it's exciting as hell.
It's exciting as hell. I do think that there's something to the fact that like in this series, right, Giannis is the best player. However, Kyrie's the second best, and some combination of Al Horford, Gordon Hayward.
No. Horford's the third best player in the series, without a doubt. I mean, Horford was incredible. I mean, he was more important than Kyrie in that game. He's obviously not better than Kyrie, but Horford is unequivocally the third best player in the series.
Right. He does the pick and pop thing with Kyrie, which is extremely hard for Milwaukee to deal with. And if he's banging down his jump shots, we're going to win every game, I think.
Yeah,
also,
I think so too. As long as he can also keep playing defense like he's playing on Giannis. Like he's defending their best player and is our second best player offensively. Like it's, yes, Horford's
if
third best
Chris
player.
Middleton is the third best player in a game, if Chris Middleton has better game than like
we're gonna
Horford,
lose. Yeah,
we're going to lose.
Yeah, it's
Jalen,
true.
Tatum,
it's
and
true.
Hayward, we're going to lose. But
Yeah.
if one of those guys can be the third best player, I actually think that like we have the best, the second best, the third best, the fourth best, the sixth and the seventh, and probably the eighth best players in this game.
Yeah, I mean,
series.
it's going to be Giannis 1, Kyrie 2, and that's never going to change. But after that, like, it's probably Horford 3, and then it gets complicated. Like, Middleton could be the fourth, or he could be, like you said, it could be Hayward at the fourth, and Tatum as the fifth, and Middleton could drop down to the sixth best player, like, or some, you know. We have a better team. Like, we have more good players than they do. We have a better coach. I think they're going to have to make serious adjustments. I think we played Robin Lopez off the court. I don't see how they can come back in game 2 and start Lopez in center like they've done all season long. And their coach, Budenholzer, or whatever his name is, he's conservative. He doesn't want to go with a small ball lineup with Giannis at the 5, but I think he has no choice after that game 1 blowout. I mean, I hope that he says, you know what? We just had a bad game, but if we stick to what we do best, we can play with these guys. We can beat them and doesn't make big adjustments because we're going to steal game 2 if that's the case too. At this point, I'm convinced the only chance the Bucks have is by making major adjustments with because their pick and roll defense was a joke. They cannot do that again. So they're going to have to put Giannis at the 5 so he guards Horford, right?
I mean, cool. That would be great.
And then we're going to need like Hayward and Jason Tatum to step up big because then that pick and pop game between Kyrie and Horford will be neutralized more or less because Giannis is athletic enough that he can drop down on the screen and then get right back up into Horford's face.
The Celtics need to get to the rim more. It's like we have this like lethal combination of like for some reason Tatum doesn't like driving the ball and Jaylen Brown, even though he's really good at it, doesn't that much. And Kyrie never looks like he's like hurt or fouled because he's got so much like physical control over his body in the air.
Yeah, those left-handed, he had a series of driving
But
left-handed
don't go
layups.
to the foul line at all, and it's bad. It's bad playoff basketball.
Well, that's a fair point, and it's something to think about. But I think that is the adjustment that we'll make when they inevitably realize that Robin Lopez can't play because they can't let Horford be open for that pop after the pick and roll. So what they're going to have to do is put Giannis at the 5 to guard and take Lopez out of the game, which is then going to open up the paint for Tatum and Brown and Hayward to drive, like to cut. They'll still do this pick and roll thing with Kyrie and Horford, but then you'll have basically once Giannis is out there trying to guard Horford on the perimeter, it's going to be no one in the paint. And then I think we will start driving more. But the way game 1 goes, like we didn't need to drive because we had just Horford open for a fucking 3-pointer or a jump shot every single time. And Jaylen Brown played great too. I mean, you have to give him a ton of credit. And you know what else? Marcus Morris, fam. I was really wrong about him in the beginning of the season. And even as he had a great beginning of the season, then he cooled off a lot towards the end. And I felt a little vindicated. I was like, yeah, I knew he wasn't that good. But now he's just playing super efficient and he's not trying to do too much. He understands his role, which I didn't think that he'd be able to do, but he really is. So he is in the starting lineup for this series because Brad Stevens, unlike his coaching counterpart, but whatever his name is, like Brad Stevens is already making adjustments. So our starting lineup, it does not have Baines in it like it did in the first round of the series. And Morris is in there and it looks good. I think it's smart.
It was great. All right, I'm bored. Let's do something else.
What do you want to do?
Should we end the podcast?
I guess so. Yeah. Well, I mean, do you want to talk about how um Josh Gordon is indefinitely suspended from the NFL because for like substance abuse problems, and Tyreek Hill is still has not been suspended by the NFL, even though he's on tape like threatening his fiance when in a conversation about which one of them broke their child's arm. Is that just too horrible to say out loud?
Josh Gordon is been criminalized in the same way that other people are criminalized in this country for using drugs. And it's fucked. But yeah, this Tyreek Hill situation, I remember us talking about it. Like, I remember you not being aware of his history during the Kareem Hunt thing. And then this comes back out. I don't see how. It just like seems like the Chiefs are in a really tough spot because they set the precedent by releasing
Kareem
Hunt, who then got signed by the Browns and will play this year.
Yeah.
So Tyreek Hill should be released, I guess? Or can the Chiefs continue to like stack up for to challenge the Patriots in the AFC if
I don't know.
They continue to release their best players.
Josh Gordon is been in this conversation in the NFL since I think Ray Rice. I think the season that Ray Rice like knocked his fiance out cold in the elevator, and there was video of it that the NFL was aware of, and he was suspended for 2 games or 3 games. Like that was the first season that Josh Gordon was suspended for the entire season for repeated marijuana use, and he just like continues to his like. He's still suspended indefinitely for, again, marijuana use, either maybe alcohol. Like, it's just like...
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing you can possibly conclude from this all is that you can't go broke overestimating how much the NFL hates women.
Yeah, it just doesn't care at all.
At all.
But we'll I don't know. We've covered that a lot on the podcast. I guess we don't have to keep it going. I loved our Patriots. I loved the draft, despite how horrible the NFL is. Is there any other sports stories that caught your mind this week, brother? Or any other stories? It's funny that after we did a podcast talking about the Boston Marathon bombing last week, did you see that Bernie Sanders like got asked about in the in some like town hall where he was like talking about how convicts should have the right to vote? Someone's like, "What about Joe Kev's whatever Sarnaev?" And Bernie Sanders was like, "Yes, of course I think he should have the right to vote." That settled the primary for me when I heard him say that. There's no way I'm supporting anyone else.
That did not settle the primary for me. But I do agree that everyone should have the right to vote, except for people who engage in massive voter fraud. Like,
I don't even know why you would make exceptions, brother, but what's going on with you? Anything else?
No, I think that's about it. That's all I got. Sorry, everyone. I don't think this was as good as last week's. I didn't hit my head, which apparently was a big hit. A lot of people liked that part of the podcast when I.
You know what's not going to be a big hit for this week's episode? With you apologizing and saying that this one's not that good. It's like you've hit your head enough in your life
at this point.
Yes, I do, and I also think that you've hit your head enough that you don't even like your short-term memory is so abysmal. I mean, and hitting your head is my generous. It's because I'm feeling generous. I'm not going to attribute it to some certain other things, but it's. I don't think that you have any sense of how good this episode has been because I actually think it's been really good. A really strong.
If everyone
episode.
Who's listening would like to settle this conversation for Sam and I, does this episode suck? We would be very interested in hearing from you.
That's true. And as my brother mentioned previously, I did tweet out an article, and I think we're gonna start using our Twitter again. So that's a good place to tell us whether or not you think we suck or not. Max, do you want to wish your brother a happy birthday? Maybe.
Well, I was planning on it's like Wednesday, Thursday, whatever the second is. Yeah, happy birthday, brother. I love you very much.
Thanks.
I'm glad I got to see you and like give you so many presents the last time I saw you.
Yeah, you gave me a really wonderful vintage Celtics jacket that I have been wearing and every day, and I think is part of the is in part responsible for how good the Celtics look.
Yeah, it's very helpful. I also have Sam has a black one, everyone. I have a white one, and they look really good when we wear them together.
Yeah.
What book are you going to start reading now that you finished Moby Dick?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I think I'm not really quite ready to move on from the Moby Dick universe, so I might try and read some like book about Moby Dick. Zan sent me a quote from, I guess, D.H. Lawrence on like in his book about Moby Dick. He said, "What then is Moby Dick? He's the deepest blood being of the white race. He's our deepest blood nature, and he's hunted by the maniacal fanaticism of our white mental consciousness. We want to hunt him down, to subject him to our will. And in this maniacal conscious hunt of ourselves, we get dark races and pale to help us. Red, yellow, black, east and west, Quaker, fire worshiper. We get them all to help us in this ghastly maniacal hunt, which is our doom and our suicide. The last phallic being of the white man." I don't know. It seems like highly problematic and very absurd, but also piqued my interest a little bit. I don't know what the fuck that means, but I kind of want to read. Maybe I'm going to read D.H. Lawrence next. But I don't know. You have any recommendations? Do you read?
Yeah, I recommend that you don't read D.H. Lawrence. He sounds like a fucking demon.
I know. Right. Yeah. True. What do
but
you
there
recommend?
there is some great criticism of Moby Dick out there, especially like from a Marxist perspective, thinking
Really?
of the whalers as workers and using the sort of early 20th century labor movement as a understanding that like people in the meatpacking industry, for instance, like Upton Sinclair's Jungle, should not be treated or think of themselves as sailors on the Pequod who are doomed to die.
Right.
That was I remember reading that criticism in college.
Do you remember who that's by? You should send that to me later. I do. I am interested in like to what extent it's at all fertile ground to like think about Moby Dick's whiteness. I mean, there's a chapter about like what
the whiteness of the whale,
and what that means to Ishmael, but it's still like kind of. I mean, it's wild to me that this book is like pre-Civil War. Basically, it comes out right on the eve of the Civil War, and so and it obviously has very interesting racial components to the racial makeup of the Pequod and the kind of the racial hierarchy of
and the rank colonialism with regard to Queequeg. So yeah, for sure, it's interesting. But also there's this quote from William Faulkner, which is really good. Basically, it's like, of all the things that were ever written that I can't believe I didn't come up with first is
the phrase
white
whale.
Yeah.
I know. And
that's really good.
I'm persuaded by that. I am persuaded by the beauty of the phrase white whale. I can't believe that we let this happen. This segment shouldn't have gone.
I think it's actually the only good part of the podcast. So I would put it first.
Well, what are you reading? Like, what kind of book are you reading?
I'm still reading Demons by Dostoevsky.
Of all the phrases, white demon. Is one I can't believe I didn't come up with.
It's a really good one.
All right, brother, that's enough. So this is Monday. I'm going to try and get this episode out at the latest Tuesday morning, in which case, if you're listening to this, check out Game 2 of the Celtics and Game 3 of the Bruins. I think they're both Tuesday night, right?
Correct.
So let's track this the end of capitalism together in the form of the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs. brother.
And then organize. Yep. I love you. I'll send you these tapes right away.
Okay. Goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.